welcome. And thank you very much for taking time from your day and your life to be here this evening. And I want to thank Gail for inviting me to come and to speak about the psychology of clutter. And we're going to hit that from a number of different angles, but let me let you know my name is Rosa Glenn Reilly. I have been a counselor for over 35 years now, and I have a wellness center, therapeutic wellness center here in Houston, opened it 27 years ago, Spectrum Center. We have about 24 practitioners that work out of Spectrum Center, psychotherapists, body workers, energy medicine specialists, a homeopath, a naturopath. We often work as in teams with our clients, and we are inside the loop, very available. I hope that you will check us out and come and see us. We have classes and workshops also there, and I do have a sign-up list for our newsletter if you would like. So let's move on and let's dive in to this topic. To start, I want to say that the topic of the psychology of clutter is really huge. And I want to address it first from a cultural view and a view into the American culture, because we are very conflicted about our stuff. And more than any other society, we really collect stuff and we identify with it. We have a still growing business of storage units, and 30, 40, 50 years ago, that business largely did not exist. We had attics, we had basements, and sometimes we had generations of things, but we also operated from closets that were really about no more than 3 or 4 feet wide, and a closet would hold someone's entire wardrobe for all seasons. So we now have closets that are entire rooms. And so we have shifted our experience with stuff, with things, with possessions. And this is an important base in which I want to place this talk. After World War II, this is sort of common knowledge, after World War II, the middle class began to grow bigger and become more wealthy. And as that happened to us, and continued to happen, and the wealth of the middle class continued to grow, we began to pick up the behaviors and habits of the wealthy. We began to really purchase objects that would give us a reflection of our identity, status, and reflect our new position in society. This became a cultural, unconscious addiction. And that's a big word, but I'm going to use it. This connection to possessions and objects as reflecting our identity and our status. So as people began to pass away, they not only, which was routine, that people would pass away, and if they had property or they had money, that would be their heirs would inherit that. Now it's not just that is inherited, but housefuls and storage units full and closets full of things, of possessions. And that is probably quite unique to our own culture. We also, every time you turn on the computer, you go to search for something, here come the the advertisements for things to buy. We can't turn on the television without that. That comes, and now it is very tailored to what your interests are. What you search on the internet will tailor the advertising that comes to you. So they, out there, know what you're interested in. So we have this constant message that comes to us that says, you're going to be younger, you'll be more beautiful, you'll be more trendy, you'll be a hell of a lot more interesting and fun if you buy this, if you wear that, if you eat this or this other thing, if you whatever, you can fill in the blank from there. We are obsessed with change for the better and terrified of change in reality. I want that to sink in a little bit. Okay. We are afraid of being left behind, and we lose our way in a mountain of things. Currently, if you notice, the wealth of the middle class is declining. And the opportunities for increased wealth has been narrowing. And as that has happened, we're seeing a rise in downsizing. We're seeing a growing love of tiny houses and simple living. And that is the piece that is bringing about, this change is bringing about, and we're entertaining really important questions that have to do with our culture. We're entertaining the new questions of, when is enough enough? What do I really need? Where do I want to spend my time? What is important? We are reworking, as a society, we're reworking identity, our identity as individuals and as a society. And that's a needed thing. So, I want you to hold on to that concept, and that if you are on the spectrum of managing clutter, and you're on the spectrum of clutter being out of control for you, then you are working a piece for the collective. It isn't just for you, it's for all of us. and that is the psychology of the group psychology. Okay? And you are going to be working these very questions and issues of identity and what is important. So we'll go from the big picture more to the everyday, and the everyday struggle with these particular issues. I'm going to start, we're going to look at hoarding, clutter, and collecting. And we're going to start with hoarding. It's gotten a lot of attention through very enduring reality TV shows. And so we are looking at that phenomena, although it is a small percentage. We're still looking at that phenomena because in some way we really relate to this. We relate to our things going out of control. For a long time, hoarding was considered a byproduct or an offshoot of obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. And OCD, in a very, very tiny way of explaining, it is repetitive behaviors aimed at reducing anxiety. It is no longer seen as an offshoot of OCD, because as brain studies have come in more strongly to help us look at human conditions and help us understand ourselves. And brain study is really, it's vast, and it's been around for a couple of decades in a very, very scientific way. We're still in the baby stages of it. there's still so much every year that's coming up in mainstream that's just helps us understand ourselves better and provides better approaches to help us. Brain activity in people who are who would identify themselves or be identified as hoarders is distinct unto itself. The brain activity shows that the area of the brain that is about decision making around possessions and objects does not operate well. And it is very specific, and it shows up repeatedly over and over in brain studies, that there is a unique pattern of the way the brain works, that area of the brain is not working as well as it should. So the decision-making part of the brain in that case is solidly and painfully stuck. Okay? Now again, there's always a spectrum there, but that is the place. Hoarding is a complex disorder. It's usually associated with depression and anxiety. There often is a family history of hoarding and high levels of perfectionism. And by perfectionism, I am referring to, again, in a very concise way, I'll look to explain that, is ideals that you cannot meet. Ideals that are so high that they cannot meet. And when that happens, there is a paralyzing of seemingly logical actions. People who hoard often form an intense emotional attachment to objects, and they often, not always, but often attach human-like qualities to inanimate objects, and so therefore feel a deep, true grief at the prospect of getting rid of something. They also often derive a sense of safety from being surrounded by possessions. A fear of getting rid of an object will look like a lost opportunity, a break in connection possibly with a specific person or a specific time in one's life. And the onset of hoarding, and this is where psychotherapists come in and we put our experience out there in the research, is that it's often associated with a very traumatic, a trauma or a loss of identity. This could be a death. This could be a physical assault, a devastating career loss, a damaging divorce. Something that has deep meaning for that person may possibly trigger this behavior. So the identity and safety is then transferred to objects. Okay? To have that associated with people is too big a risk. So it can be associated there and transferred there. Many of the same features that I'm talking about here can exist in a lesser degree with just the accumulation of clutter. But it's a different piece. Clutter. Let's go to clutter. Clothes that no longer fit, piles of paper, years and years of children's artwork, report cards, photographs, favorite toys, outgrown sporting equipment that you're never going to ski again, and there it is with everything. Broken tools that need to be fixed, again, pile of papers, shoes you haven't worn in 10 or 12 years, yarn, cloth, beads, paint associated with hobbies you've long lost interest in. All of that clutter that I think everyone is familiar with to some degree or another. So let's look at what hides underneath clutter. And here are the rationales usually. I may need those someday. Okay? I'm getting nods, yeah. This might fit again if I lose 20 pounds. This might be valuable someday. Okay? My children will want this when they're grown. All right. We cling to memories. We human beings cling to memories. We hold on tight to possibilities. Those are the most obvious drives behind clutter, but let's go underneath a little more. We are also, as human beings, fairly logical. I know that we often accuse or see others as being illogical, but often our actions and what we do really rest on logic. When we have issues that we do not believe that we can control or solve, usually we distract ourselves. And there is a very effective distraction, which is clutter. So, clutter can hide a dream that is drowning. Clutter can hide a relationship that is stuck, or a business or career that is stagnant. Clutter can hide the fact that we no longer have the body that we inhabited 10 years ago. That the children have grown and left home. Or that the divorce happened 8 years ago and we need to let go. We hold on to a former image of ourselves in different ways. And this is another way that we as human beings do that. If we have not caught up with changes in our identity as we age, as relationships change, as professions change, clutter will not only distract us, but it will reflect our stuckness and our confusion. So, our outer environment will reflect our inner environment. Our outer chaos will reflect our inner chaos. Our outer stuckness will reflect our inner stuckness. It's our psyche's way of facing us with the reality, the truth. Do you see what's going on here? The psyche says. And at first, there's actually a comfort to that inner and outer reflection. It actually sort of feels good. It's like the inside can relax a little bit because the truth and the commonality is reflected to you every day. When it is left too long and the burden of that truth is not going toward a remedy, not going toward a solution, then it becomes overwhelming and we often cannot climb out alone. That's when you call Gail or someone like me. As a counselor, I will ask clients, and they always think that it's an odd question, but I will ask them, so tell me, what does your car look like? No, not on the outside. What kind of car do you have? What does it look like inside? And your house, describe to me your kitchen. What do you generally have out? Oh my God, I have everything out. I have piles of paper, but I know where everything is. And I have, well, I haven't put away the Christmas stuff from, oh no, not this year, last year. And I started to sort the family pictures, but I didn't really finish it. So it's over there. And so you start getting what connections to, what's going on inside. I'll often start with a very small, manageable piece. Throw out the cans in the pantry that are expired. Take your underwear and sock drawer and take it out and reorganize it. throw out what really doesn't, what you don't want anymore. This will often just break the stalemate in very small increment. Movement, any movement, creates true possibility, not the possibility that sits with, oh, I may start to paint again, but true today possibility. Decluttering brings in new energy, fresh air, new ideas. Okay, so we're going to move from general clutter, we're going to move to looking at collections. I have a dear friend who collects bad poetry. And it's really, really bad poetry. You know, through the years, he has become an expert in finding really the worst poetry in the world. And I wish I had some, because I would read one to you and you would see really how bad it is. But that's one thing that brings him great joy, is finding really bad poetry. And I actually think that someone did a book on bad poetry. And I would not be surprised, but this is his own private collection. I have another friend who began collecting arrowheads with his grandfather when he was a boy. And that collection continued. And now he has one of the finest collections of arrowheads in North America. That can happen, and that does happen. That's rare, but it does. My history of collecting began with doll clothes for my favorite doll. And then it moved to salt and pepper shakers, because I could go to the Five and Dime and I could buy salt and pepper shakers of little dogs or little puppies or little kitty cats or milkmaids, and I got 2 of them, and it was cheap and I could buy it with my allowance. And they would come home with me and become part of my array of dolls and stuffed animals, and through which I created stories and narratives and theater, which was my base training in becoming a therapist, and also a writer, which I am that too. So I moved from that to collecting Catholic holy cards at a time that I had this impossible crush on a boy a year older than I in the 6th grade. And I was trying to make deals with God. And then I collected the entire set of Nancy Drew mystery books and collected the music from the Beatles to the Talking Heads. Now, those cycles of collections reflected my own changing identity through the years. And that's often what collections do. So there is no harm in realizing that you're no longer interested in one thing and your interest is going somewhere else. This is the movement of your identity. Decades later, as a grandmother, my granddaughter and I collected Beanie Babies. And I was convinced at the time that that these Beanie Babies would be worth a great deal of money. It would certainly pay for part of her college. So I was wrong. 20 years later, the Beanie Babies are inside about 13 boxes, and they are of no greater value than when I originally bought them. But what was priceless was the experience that we had. The bondings and the outings that we had looking for the next Beanie Baby. And that I treasure. Collections are often associated with identity and value. Sometimes those two come together, like the story of my friend with the arrowheads. And then, when that comes together, people stop complaining about the stuff, the boxes and crates of things that you're dragging through when you're when you're moving. All of a sudden, those complaints go away. My mother was an art collector. She understood art, she had an eye for it, and her collection became valuable. It also reflected her knowledge and her own identity as an artist. There was a time when we were making a move. This was way back in the 60s, and I was a kid, and we were making a move. And the car, it was a station wagon, was completely full of art. And I had a suitcase about this big. So it's like, here, this is, you can put what you're going to take here. and yet it was already established that this collection, and she would talk to me about the artists, and she would tell me the stories of how she found this or that, and that there was a richness to the experience that was worth the collecting. So it's worth looking at collections to see what is the value, what does it reflect about you, and does it still hold some realistic juice for you? So this is, we've hit sort of highlights here around culture, the influence of culture, around what we now see as clutter, and the possibly the idea that the things that we work on a psychological level, we work for more than just ourselves, but we work it for the collective, we work it for the group. We've looked at hoarding, we've looked at general clutter, and we've looked at collections. I hope that there are some elements here for you to relate to. I hope that you're thinking of some questions, because we're going to move to questions. And before that, I want to seed a couple of things that we can talk further about. Depression definitely is associated with clutter, the inability to move clutter to a more organized state, and to get rid of things that are no longer useful for you. So depression and also anxiety have a distinct connection. ADHD has a distinct connection. There also is a particular experience that when ADHD is triggered, when that experience is triggered, the ability for the brain to prioritize one thing as more important than the other goes away. Everything flattens out. Okay? And if usually ADHD is connected with other things like dyslexia and learning disabilities. It usually does not come by itself. So with some people also, something that is distinct to ADHD, connected to often another facet of learning disability or dyslexia, is the fact that once something goes into a file, once something goes into a drawer, it disappears for you. So you'll buy it again. Okay? And then you'll feel a little silly and stupid when you find it. And when you bring out all of the office supplies that nods, all the office supplies, and say, oh my God, okay, there they all are. So there's a different system of organization that needs to be developed when that piece is there. That piece of, I put it away, it's gone, and I forget it's there. Okay, it's no longer real. The other is the connection to clutter and aging. When we just don't have the energy, yes, obviously, when memory starts to falter a bit, but in just the energy to keep up with things, it begins to wane. Or we have illness that saps some of our energy, and that begins to wane, and our ability to focus diminishes. So, and things can get out of hand very quickly. So again, this is where you call for help. And the more practical, the better. So, okay, we're going to move to Q&A, to questions and answers.
I have a question. Could
Yes.
you speak to, I was helping my sister clear out some stuff, and I have the same issue, we both do.
Yeah.
And that is the feeling that you have a responsibility to make sure this precious something goes to the right place. Like, my husband would say, well, just throw it in the trash. I was like, no, it has to go to either recycling or Goodwill or a women's shelter, or, you just feel like a burden that this thing must go to the right place.
Perfectionism.
Somehow. And she was shipping books to a school somewhere, spending money to ship them because she thought that this particular school needed these particular books, and spending her money to do that when, she could have just dropped them off in her community. And so it was easy for me to see, but I do the same thing.
Yes.
So.
Okay. So that holding on tight to that need to this is precious. These books are precious, and these books belong donated to the library. And these two have to go to my grandson in college. And these other dozen books, well, she has a daughter in New York who's about the age that she would enjoy this. And it starts to build. There you're talking about perfectionism. You're talking about the possibilities narrowing, and I don't know what Gail would say, but it's either help that person do this task, and just go with it if that's going to break the stalemate. Okay, or if it's you, to just get the help and say, I know it's unreasonable, and this is what I have to do. And then as a therapist, I would say take the plunge and take one set of those books that are supposed to go to a specific place and throw it away. Just break it. Okay? Just take that risk and manage the anxiety that comes with it. Okay?
I read once, it's called perfectionist procrastination. If we can't do it perfectly, we don't do it at all.
Get it all. Yeah.
And like, we could do it in an office and somebody think we're the most organized people ever put on the planet.
Yeah.
Because at work you can do things fairly, but when it comes
Yes.
to us, you can't ever do anything perfectly at home.
Well,
I mean,
you really can't do anything perfectly.
I know, but it's such that
Yes.
you could be so perfectionistic and get it done, and then at home just everything is chaos. It's
Yeah.
how do you get over that? There's no simple answer.
There's no simple answer. There's no simple answer, but I would say look a little bit more. What at home needs. What are you distracting from at home? What at home needs to
Everything.
work better for you? Okay.
And when you do get rid of something, I'm still mourning over a sweater set that I got rid of 30 years ago. And you sometimes don't forgive yourself for these little things, and it makes it much harder How do you
Yes.
know that one?
Yes.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
So
We're scared of making a mistake,
yes.
throwing away something we need.
Yes.
Might need.
That you might
Need.
need. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you ever write stories?
No.
Write a story about the sweater set.
Okay.
Okay. Just put the sweater set on a character,
Uh-huh.
and just write
Okay.
a story about that character wearing the sweater set.
Okay.
Okay.
And?
Just that.
Okay.
Okay. And just because it's sitting here, stuck, kind of semi-alive in your memories.
Yeah.
And so go ahead and give a sweater set to a character in a story.
Okay.
Just see what happens. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
I know you're still hanging on to your Beanie Baby collection, it sounds like.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
not to put you on the spot, but
Right.
if you had a client
Uh-huh.
who were hanging on to their collection of something that
Right.
they had collected thinking it might be really valuable someday, but it's not,
Uh-huh.
and there is a sentimental attachment.
Uh-huh.
It reminds them of the time they spent with the granddaughter.
Right.
What advice would you give? What's the approach to parting with that collection?
Now, I took the first step in that I contacted my granddaughter and said, I'm not keeping the beanies, I'm not storing the beanies anymore. And so what do you want to do with them? Because they're yours. I can give them to Goodwill, I can do this, I can give them to Texas Children's, I'll do whatever. No, let me think about it. And then my granddaughter, her sister, and my daughter, her mother, got together because they're all crafters. They're crafters and artists. And so they have started to sketch out this devouring monster that they're going to make a wire mesh form, and they're going to attach all the Beanie Babies to this form. So they have now taken the boxes.
There you go.
They've taken the boxes of the Beanie Babies. The Beanie Babies now live in Austin, and they're in the phase of wild discussion of the possibilities.
I got caught up in the Beanie Baby craze also when
Yes.
I was working, and there was a girl that was obsessed with them.
Uh-huh.
And she kind of talked me into buying them, and I think I paid as much as $25 for the purple bear,
Right.
which is ridiculous.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's only worth $3.
Right.
So I have a whole pile of Beanie Babies. So what I do with them, every year at Christmas, there's always some contest where you have to donate a gift or a toy,
Right.
and I have a pile of things to donate.
That's
So-
great.
So that's what I do.
That is great. Good job.
Isn't a lot of it about waste? You're not supposed to waste things. You throw this away, you're wasting it. Somebody could use it.
Yes, that's a rationale. Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, for those of you on YouTube, isn't it a waste? You know, isn't the issue that it's a waste to get rid of something? And that becomes one of the long lists of rationales not to move things on. Yes.
I was wondering, do you think that's like the tail end of the Depression era thinking that, you know, our parents lived through that, and so they impressed upon us that you are not to waste?
Yes.
And yet now it's like you say the Great Depression, if there was somebody felt bad for a long time.
Right.
So it may be that will stop, say, with the next generation.
Yes. Yes.
But I do the same
the-
thing, it's like, I'm not going to recycle this printer. I will get, and I called 3 different places, and there was a place that they would be glad to have it for their office, because there are a lot of places like Man and Wham and all those, that they need things and they don't have the money for them, and so it's
Yeah.
like, well, this is perfectly good.
Yeah.
So, and I feel better.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So the contribution to this discussion is this part of a remnant of the Great Depression, and when things were precious, were absolutely precious, and had to be used over and over again, and we had to repurpose things. And yes, and again, we go to the larger psyche, because we're several generations away from the Great Depression, but it's still lingering. It's still in the psyche of generations that are still alive, and will be for a while. So there is that piece. And again, collectively, we are working out psychically and psychologically. We are working out the far extreme of the lesson of the Great Depression. And so it will fade, and I think that the interest in downsizing, the interest in simplifying, the interest in tiny houses, those is part of reworking that piece, and updating that piece also.
And there's a freedom, but the weight is gone.
Yes. Yeah, this is choice rather than no choice.
What if you have this clutter and you can't afford to pay someone like Gail got her, but you need help?
Okay, all right. Do you have friends to enlist?
I don't think so.
Okay, then start small. Start very small, and then do the next small thing.
Right, because it feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's a I think it's Tibetan. Excuse me if it's not, but I think it's Tibetan. And there's a Tao question of how do you eat an elephant, and the answer is one bite at a time. And that's
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people
apply.
that, they say set a timer for 15 minutes or just
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Start small.
Start small.
Thank you.
I have a 2-part question.
Okay.
Number one, is there one book that you know of that's really great, would help? And the second one is, in your experience as a therapist, could you share with us some success stories and how long it took, et cetera?
Is there a book about this? There's a great deal out there, and there isn't one
We can
specific.
collect all of them.
Yeah, collect all of them. Yes, of course, yes.
Which one would you actually
What was I thinking? Of course, collect all of them. One of them is bound to be the one.
Which one would you actually read? No, we don't read them, we collect them.
One of these days, Gail and I are gonna write her book,
Yes.
and then that will be the book that you
But
have to
until
have.
then, it
But
was there.
until then,
She has her website.
yes, yeah.
There, and know that for me as a psychotherapist, this issue comes up, and there's I'm gonna do this not in terms of clients, but in terms of friends. Okay. I have a friend who suffered a home invasion, and and she began to not so much hoard, it wasn't that, but she began to see that she was accumulating things and things were becoming cluttered, but it was centering around all of the ways in. Okay? It was very tricky to get in any door to the house. And it was very unconscious move until it was really fairly barricaded. And so she was able to, again, the logic of the human brain. And so she began to stop thinking that that this didn't need to be dealt with at a deeper level. And so she began to deal with it, even though she began to deal with it yet at a deeper level. And that's beginning to shift and move, and order is beginning to come back, and she is using other methods to secure doors. Okay, so it's a progression. Sometimes often it is about going underneath what may be the catalyst. So you have a question?
Oh, I forgot my question.
Okay.
What was the book?
I was just thinking about when I moved from North Carolina to Texas, and I've always been a person that holds on to things for sentimental value, and my kids would make fun of me and everything, and I'm getting better, and I'm trying to remember what that lady told me when we were moving. I had a lot of people from church helping me, and I was trying to remember what she said. Is it something, there were 3 questions you have to ask yourself, and then are you going to use it, and da-da-da-da, and then you have these 3 boxes or something.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
just helped me to figure out where things went.
Good.
And I've gotten rid of a lot of stuff. I just emptied out my parents' house and moved into a house myself, but I've got lots of boxes. I've been in the house 8 months,
Uh-huh.
and I've got lots of boxes that are still. I thought of my question now. Getting started, getting that initial inertia going to start the process.
Yeah.
It's like, if it gets to that overwhelming stage, it's hard to start.
Yes.
And so what I've tried to do is just set a few small goals. Well, for me, this is crazy, but this is what I did this week. Like the dishes, when you wash dishes, that's the beginning of the process of getting started, because that's something you got to get in some kind of pattern. But I mean, I will just, I'll do anything I can not to do it. Go watch TV or.
Right.
So I had to figure out what's causing, and I think it has to do with that ADHD. I don't know if I have that or not, but I do and I'm real creative, and I like to get off on another tangent and not do the stuff that has to be done.
So we're talking about the overwhelm to begin to do a task, and also the overwhelm to complete it once you start it. And that is often associated with ADHD, because there is a difficulty in getting started, and then when you're in it, there's a difficulty, there's this pull, and it's almost physical pull to go away from it before it's completed. And there, if you can, just as an experiment, manage the discomfort, the physical discomfort, to take it to completion. Okay? Know that that's going to come up. Don't lie to yourself about it. It's going to come up. Know it's going to come up. Make the task small enough that you can go from beginning to end on it. Clean out the spices in your pantry, but don't do everything else. And feel the discomfort. Become familiar with the discomfort where it feels like you have got to leave that before it's finished.
I don't have that.
And manage it.
But maybe some people do, but I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's not discomfortable. uncomfortable to me is just that I don't wanna do the task because it's too boring.
You'd rather do something else.
I'd rather do something else.
Yeah.
And so I'll say, well, I'm gonna go do this because this is more fun.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
fall into that too.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's my little experience
Okay.
with it. But that lady helped me, the one in North Carolina, when she told me those 3 questions.
Just 3.
And I
boxes.
go online every now and then, y'all, and I look up about organizing, and because I forget things, I can't remember for a month or 2. And if you just write down some little tips and just try those tips, and
Yes.
you have to be. I was thinking about this lady up here that doesn't have any help. I felt like saying, be happy with what you do get accomplished.
Yes.
Be proud of what you do get accomplished. It may not be a lot, but
Be proud of
all
what
my
you
friends
do
told me
every
1 box a
step.
day, if that's all you can handle, just do that. And I'm like, well, it'll take me a year. Oh, well.
Yes.
You don't have to dance after you've done
And
that.
how
And to have a
close are we?
celebration.
What's the time?
Couple of minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, because I saw you do the 5 minutes. So, okay, a quick question. We don't have any time left for a
I just
full
have a
question.
comment. With me anyway, I don't like to do it either. I'd rather do anything but.
Yes.
However, if I make an appointment to say, have a friend come for coffee to just sit or chat or whatever, then I feel as though, okay, I have to do it.
Yes. Yes. That is a wonderful trick to getting a kitchen clean or the dining table clean, is invite someone over. If you feel that I can't have this person over without cleaning the dining room table off and sweeping this or doing the dishes, whatever, that's great.
Well, and I was thinking to invite the person to sit while you clean the kitchen or whatever.
Yes. Yes, you can do that too. They're a good enough friend to come and do that, absolutely, absolutely. Invite them over to keep you company while you do. It'll make it much more interesting. I also know people who swap, and they'll say, okay, I'll come clean your bedroom, you come clean my living room. And they'll swap because managing someone else's stuff is so much easier. So, okay, we're gonna end. We're gonna shut down YouTube. Bye.